Yes, you guys are not seeing things. I am, in fact, wearing a KFC bucket hat. Probably the most beautiful piece of memorabilia I have. And if you're wondering, why is this chubby kid right now wearing a bucket hat inside where there's no sun? There's a couple of reasons. Of course, if I do actually flip this, and I flip it all the way to the front here, we've got some signatures, and they're not just from any ordinary people. One of these signatures does actually come from the Lord and Saviour, not Jesus Christ, but the next in line, Dion Prestia of the Richmond Football Club, who, again, I would let date my daughter if I have one, you know, just for future reference and whatnot. But the thing is, the reason I've got this awesome KFC bucket hat on is because we're talking about the Richmond Football Club today, the team that Dion Prestia plays for. And I mean, it's also like 48 degrees outside right now. I'm sweating balls. I get sunburn every time I just take one step out the house. But again, we're talking about a subject I've covered a couple times on this channel that just keeps having more and more news. And what I'm talking about today does happen to be the Richmond versus North Melbourne reported 2024 AFL draft pick swap that could be happening. And we've got a ton of new news to talk about today. Again, before we do get into all of that and more, there is still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor, you know, maybe subscribe and leave a like on this video if you haven't already. And you know what? One day, probably next year when the sun's gone, I might even give this KFC bucket hat with a bunch of Richmond signatures away. Not that any of you guys would probably want it, but you know what? I think it's kind of cool. Anyway, starting off with the recent news here, it's being said that rumours keep circling around a pick swap between the Tigers and the Roos. It is widely known that North are very, very keen on Gippsland Power utility Alex Tarue. It is also widely known that North would prefer to trade down the order because the top 5 to 6 prospects on the draft board are midfielders. You don't take a prospect at 2 if you could get them at 6, theoretically. You trade down, get extra picks, and still take the guys you want. Makes sense. Unfortunately for North, it's an incredibly even draft and there are a ton of suitors. I'm very confident that North wants this deal to happen more than Richmond do. Apparently, we will only do a deal if we come out clear winners. I've also heard that Richmond might leverage taking Tarue at 6, which means North can't deal with the Saints. So what are some possible trades being floated? By the way, rule out 2 for pick 6 and 11. It ain't happening, which is super interesting. Again, if you guys are hearing any background noises, my 55 kilogram Rottweiler is just chilling down here, pretty much cock blocking the audio of my video right now. So apologies. It's not me farting consistently in rhythm. It's literally just him snoring. And he's pretty obese, so he struggles to breathe. Here's some options. We got North Melbourne gets pick 6 and 23, and Richmond get pick 2. Option number 2, North Melbourne get pick 6 and 12. Richmond get pick 2 plus a future first. Again, this one is the one that has been absolutely going around everywhere. I have spoken about it on the channel and I made a video on it. I highly recommend you guys go and check that out. But to run over why this deal would happen, because, I mean, 2 and a future first, there's no way that's not better than 6 and 12 in most drafts. But the reason why it's actually an even trade in this one is because 6 and 12 in the 2024 draft, which is being said to be arguably the most stacked draft in history, is basically like the equivalent of pick 3 and pick 6 in any other draft. That's just what the reality of things is. This draft is so goddamn deep. While pick 2, you know, some people say 2 and 6, there's not much separation in this draft because it's so top heavy. But also a future first in next year's draft, which is being said to be a much weaker draft. Let's just say North have like pick 7 next year. That pick 7, you know, would be equivalent to maybe like 15 in this year's draft if what we're hearing is true. Again, option number 3 as well as North Melbourne get pick 6 and 18 and a future second, while Richmond get 2 and a future first. Shh. Mate, you're snoring too loud. They don't want to hear you having a cardiac arrest in the background. God damn. Obviously, if I had to do any of these, I actually don't mind option 3. 6 and 18 in a future second for 2 and a future first is really good. That means Richmond can have pick 1, 2, 10, and 11, which is pretty goddamn dominant. That means they could basically get the 2 best, midfielders in this draft with those 2 picks, and then 2 of the best key forwards at 10 and 11. That's a really interesting one. It also furthermore says that Richmond are adamant, once again, that if a deal is to be done, the other team has to offer a deal that's too good to refuse. Richmond aren't the ones pushing this deal to happen. I would be open to any of these options, as I think we come out on top in all of them. One thing I reckon you could lock in is that if we get pick 2, Lawler and Foz, Finn O'Sullivan, will be in the yellow and black next year. The perfect complement to Taranto long term, which is legitimately so true. I mean, rumours have it Richmond are already locking in Lawler at 1, so they would most likely go Finn O'Sullivan, the next best option at number 2. Again, why North Melbourne are pushing this so much is for a lot of reasons. First of all, North Melbourne have drafted so many midfielders in the last couple drafts that they just flat out do not need any more. They have a stacked midfield now that in 3 years or so could be the best midfield in the AFL. The reality is they don't need another midfielder to come in and, develop with this team. They need either a forward, most likely key forward, or anything down back. They have by far the weakest back line in the AFL. The thing is, there is a guy named Alex Taru right there who was ranked about pick 6, who is by far the best backman in the draft. Really good half-back that actually grew to 192 centimeters and can play as like a 3rd or 4th tall. The North Melbourne really want, and a couple other teams like Richmond really want at like pick 6 as well, which they could take. The realistic thing is, North want this guy that bad, to the point where if they can't find a trade, they may be forced to take him at pick 2, which they just don't want to do. As this article said, why would you take a guy at 2 or 3 that you could probably still get at like 6 or 7, which North know they can do? So this would make sense for them to trade, pick 2 away to bring in pick 6 from Richmond and a later pick, which we know they will probably try and target Richmond's pick 12 to try and select a Luke Traynor, who is the best key defender in this draft. Again, they can come out with the 2 best backmen, most likely, other than Toby Travelier, or I can't even remember how you bloody say his name, but he's a really good half-back. They could come out with arguably the 2 best backmen in this draft class if they really wanted to. And the only way they could do that, though, is going to Richmond and facilitating this trade. Again, though, Richmond are pretty comfortable with where they are, and the only way they're going to do this trade is if they get overs. So the reality I've seen is I think North will be asking for pick 6 and 11, because if they get pick 18, they're probably not going to get Traynor there. He'll probably get selected higher. So to ensure they get Alex Taru at 6, and then Traynor, they will have to get pick 11. So I'm assuming that will be the starting ground. They will ask Richmond for 6 and 11, which is a lot considering this is one of the best drafts, if not the most stacked we have ever seen. So Richmond will be saying, look, you have to overpay. If you want to secure the best 2 backmen in this draft class, not only do we want pick 2, but we want your future first round pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if Richmond, who I think want to take about 8 players in this draft, say to them, look, we want a 3rd as well. And I don't even know if they have a 3rd, because I think they traded it for Luke Parker. So North might have to trade their future 3rd to a team to secure a 3rd in this year's draft, which is harder said than done, because again, this is a much better draft, and Richmond would probably do that deal. So then they can maybe take a guy later on who slides in the draft that they might like. Again, there's a lot of ifs and buts to this, a lot of really interesting theories that, oh man, so many people don't know where this is going to go, and it's going to be an interesting thing to see if this gets done. Again, I believe the deadline for the trades is coming pretty soon, but as soon as draft night does start, this trade can get done. And look, they're going to secretly talk before the draft night and make sure that if they want to get a deal done, they will get it done. I just think the issue for North is Richmond are probably going to rather take pick 6 and 11 into this year's draft than their 2 and a future first, because next year's draft is irrelevant to them right now. They're focused on the most stacked draft, and they have the most stacked picks ever seen by a non-foundation team. So they're going to be thinking, look, pick 11 in this year's draft is the equivalent to like pick 5 in most years' draft, and we have that right there. You want us to trade, pick 6 and pick 11 for 2, and we think that the guy we want at 2 could be available at 6 anyway, whether that's Langford or Smiley that they've been really interested in. Yeah, it's like, well, if Richmond do this, it's going to be because they're going to get the better deal. They've got the leverage in the situation. And I think that it's almost like North have to overpay because, you could set your development back for the back line like 1 year later if you have to draft a key defender, a good one in next year's draft, than this one. They're going to want to be good in like 2 or so years. They've been rebuilding for that long. And for how long they've been rebuilding, they haven't picked up many good backmen. And there's 2 elite ones sitting right there that they just need to go out and try and get. So there's a lot going on here. I'd very much really like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you guys think North Melbourne will pull the trigger on a couple of these deals, or do you guys think they won't? Do you guys think Richmond will even do this trade? What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Of course, don't forget to make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest sports content, news, AFL content, all of the above. Again, subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlog channels, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.